Microphone is H6. Speaker. Yeah, that's good. Make sure the volume is off over here. And it is. Welcome everyone to Satsang with G for this beautiful, what is it, October 28th, almost done with October and into November, really getting close to the end of the year. 4 people watching. Please, as always, I invite people to just type in, say hi, and where you are listening in from. It's always amazing for me to experience where people are at, and also it lets me know that you can hear me, that the sound is okay, and that everything is working copacetically. That's really the best. I think I'm actually going to switch over to Chrome because it tends to work a little better. And I don't want to have so many screens on. There it is. Now I can close you. And I make sure the sound is working. Just to dull that. So once again, hello and welcome. Please say hello. Make sure everyone can hear me. Oh, this is great. Lamar from Sacramento, hello. Aaron, hello, Aaron from Louisville, Kentucky. Kim Simmons, 100 from New Zealand. We have Dominican Republic, Juan Rijo. Brian in Virginia. IG actually off work in time. Woo! Pretty day here in Norfolk, Virginia. YouTube University. Hi from Switzerland. Michael Jeffries. Hi from Los Angeles. Oh, more US people today. How about that? For those of you who are not familiar with Satsang, because many people have joined my list recently, every week some new people sign up to get the announcements. Satsang is really not about what you learn, it's about what you forget. The whole purpose of genuine spiritual inquiry, of which Satsang, which simply is communion with the truth, is about shedding all of our false beliefs about what's true, especially about what is true about you. What is the truth of your being? Satsang is the opportunity to explore that in depth, and to explore it through the heart rather than through the mind. It's not about what you learn. There's a couple of dimensions to mind. There's the purely descriptive comparative mind, the mind that identifies this is that, and this is a teacup, and this is a light, and this is a camera. Then there's a much more subtle aspect of mind, which is creating relationship. Now, relationship, if we look, a relationship isn't a thing you can touch. It's something that we only see with our minds. The relationship between stuff, because we notice the interactions between two things, and so we can actually perceive something that isn't perceivable. Now I want you to think about that, because it's really deeply significant. So many things that we take for granted, like relationships and love, truth, justice, equality, the idea of being of a sense of unity, of sense of common purpose, or even of camaraderie. These are all things that are non-tangible. We live in a mental universe of non-tangible things. And yet, when a spiritual teacher presents the idea that you yourself are not tangible, that you're not the thing, you're not this body, you're not the mind, you're not the emotions that happen to be running through the system. When we actually come face to face with that idea, we have a hard time accepting it. The mind says, well, what do you mean? I mean, there's got to be something there. Everything is, got solid, tangible, objective format. Well, I've just gave you an entire list, including all relationships, none of which are tangible, none of which are the thing. You can hold this tea bag and this cup together, and immediately you see the relationship. Yeah, this was the tea bag that I made this cup of tea with. But is any of that, I mean, really, without that thought, just have the cup and the tea bag, is there any innate, inherent relationship between the two? No, the relationship is completely within our conceptual framework. It is completely perceived as non-tangible, something very non-tangible, solid as an object, real as any object, but not objective at all. This, my friends, is the nature of the self. This is the nature of your true being. There is a relationship between consciousness and the objects that consciousness perceives. The gross objects, like all the physical forms, the actual tea bag and cup, as well as the subtle objects, the non-tangible objects like relationship and quality. Right? I mean, think about art. We want to just call it, well, it's just subjective. Well, I'm not so sure it is. I think, I'm sorry, but that Mozart really was a greater musician than Justin Bieber, or the Backstreet Boys, or whoever happens to be popular now. It was. I mean, I don't think anybody can deny that. Not, you may prefer to listen to Justin Bieber. That has nothing to do with it. But there is within us this capacity to discern art, to discern quality, and that's non-tangible. It's a completely non-tangible thing, and yet it's as real as anything. The whole approach that I take in spirituality is that you're a spirit, not a spirit, right? Not, which is just really an ephemeral form, right? We want to think of ourselves as having some form. So even when we recognize that we're more than the body, and lots of people do, most people believe that after the body dies, you go somewhere else. So you continue on. And then I ask, well, then who is this you that continues on? Well, it's the spirit. It's my spirit, right? It's my soul. But aren't those just really subtle objects of mind? So when I say spirituality, I'm saying spirit, that you're not a spirit, that you are the spirit, one spirit. Just like there's one space, right? Yeah, we make walls, right? We say, well, the space here is different than the space out there. But if there were no walls, right, which are temporary, we put them up, we take them down, we move them, would there be more than one space? Is the space here in Seattle any different than the space in France or Sweden? Or the space here on Earth any different than the space of Jupiter? Notice how difficult it is for your mind to conceive of that, because the mind, by its nature, wants to divide. The mind wants to create objects. That's all it can do, is manipulate symbolism, which is why satsang, spiritual inquiry, is not simply the collecting of objective information. It is not merely the describing of something. Right? What's spiritual? Well, it's spiritual if I meditate, or it's spiritual if I'm compassionate. No, that has nothing to do with it. Those, those are, you might think of those as the perfume of spirituality. They're the appearance of it. They're the identifiable form that you can clearly trace back to its source. But the source itself cannot be perceived. And this is the big news in spiritual inquiry. This is the big news. Who you are cannot be perceived. You are beyond all conceptions. Every conception will be nothing but a reduction of who you are. It has to reduce it down to objects that we can manipulate. And so we're taught from the time we were little that you are the body. I have the wonderful opportunity now. I'm living here in Seattle. I'm going to stay with my son for a few months as I figure out what I'm going to do and where I'm going to live and this new world I've just entered into. Which, by the way, pardon the mess behind me. I'm still kind of organizing things. You wouldn't believe all the stuff that's on the floor below what you can you can see up here. But at any rate, I've had the wonderful opportunity to get very close and watch my young granddaughter as she grows, going from that pure, undifferentiated consciousness, no me, no you, no nothing, pure experience, to the emergence of just about, maybe 2 weeks ago, for the first time ever, I heard her say the word I. Before that, it was always Augie. She can't say her name, Audrey, so she says Augie. She's just beginning to be able to actually say the name, but she would say Augie, Augie, Augie sit. Now it's I sit. I want. I actually watched that sense of I appear. And it's a really marvelous thing to watch because we've all gone through it. And I feel very grateful to actually watch it while it's happening. Now, my poor son, of course, is going, is there any way I could keep her from getting conditioned? Go. And we both know that we can't, that it's not about avoiding the conditioning, which is what humans have to do in order to wake up. But it's about how do we make that transition as easy and as smooth as possible, without the least amount of trauma, the least amount of conflict, so that she will very easily move through that. But that's the important thing to see, that for very early age, we are forced into a sense of identification with the body. If I am something separate, then that something I am is the body. And that's the beginning of it. And so when somebody comes along and says, you're not your body, it can be very confusing because the mind does, oh, I'm not the body. Well, then I'm spirit. And so, the mind then tries to imagine this ephemeral body, right? And this body that's, can walk through walls and stuff. But yet there's still a form there, isn't there? There's some kind of thing that clearly identifies you as you and was here before the body came and will be here after the body dies. That's actually true, but not of a form, not even of a ephemeral, ethereal form. It's true of you. Consciousness is formless. You are formless. So you can't think of yourself as any kind of form. Identification with form is the cause of suffering, creates all the conflict in the world. But it's also why you cannot come up with a spiritual idea of yourself. You go beyond all form until you see that you are formless. And then, wonder of wonders, you see that emptiness and form are one. That the form that you see is the manifestation of the emptiness which you do not see. The emptiness is what you are. The form is how you appear. And so you don't lose this. I'm not going to lose GP because I know who I am. Exactly the opposite. I'm not stuck here anymore. I'm not stuck in a form. I'm not limited by it. But it's, I like to use the example of it being in music, like in music. If you play a certain instrument, you could say, well, that instrument is a limitation. I could say, no, it's the definition. If you play the flute, play the flute completely and totally. Play that flute. Get everything out of that flute sound. that you can. I actually learned flute once, a long time ago, and I had a really good teacher in Chicago. And I said, when my first lesson, as I was starting with, what's the best way to learn this? He was a jazz flautist, jazz sax player too. And he said, well, the best way to learn how to do it is you start at the bottom, you go all the way up to the top, and you learn. But he used that word learn like an intimate thing, like you're actually exploring what can this do. Your human form is like that. It's like the instrument you've been given. Although, but it's not like, everybody has, there's, a saxophone and you can have a million people playing a saxophone. You're one of a kind. You're the only instrument there is you. But that's what this is. It's not a hindrance. It's not a problem. It's not something in the way. It is the instrument through which you express yourself. So that means that this instrument isn't a limit any more than a piano is a limit, right? No, it's the mode of expression. So you use that mode and you take it to the nth degree. Spiritual liberation doesn't just liberate you from identification with the body. It liberates the human being from identification with the body. And so suddenly the opportunity for self-expression just goes through the roof. I'm going to open it up here for questions now. I think I may even have some already here. Say hi from Emiliano from Sweden, Motorcyclist from Holland, Ella also from Holland, Anne from I think she's in North Carolina. Hi, have you moved to the West Coast and are out of New York? Yes, I am no longer living in New York at all. I've moved everything here now. Kamalesh Singh, hello from India. Hello. Mark C. Hello. I'm on the brink of despair. I've spent the better part of my life doing the right things on the path to healing. Yoga, meditation, exercise, therapy. Now it seems all I can do, manage, and true happiness is out of reach. Let me take a minute with this, because man, this is a big one for everyone. We do not achieve happiness through spiritual practices. You can practice all the yoga you want, you can practice all the meditation you want, and if it isn't, well, and it works for a while, right? I mean, it's not like it's a complete waste of time. Of course it isn't. It works, but only for a while. Because ultimately, to come to true happiness, you have to come to know who you are. And the problem is, with all of the spiritual techniques, I say the same thing about self-help techniques. I refer to it as the self-help treadmill. All of these techniques assume there's something wrong with you and you need to be fixed. Real spirituality starts from the premise that there's nothing wrong with you, but you have simply mistaken yourself to be someone you're not. And because you're thinking of yourself as someone you're not, you're feeling constrained, you're feeling stuck, you're feeling limited because the idea you have of yourself is too small. Now, we all start from that premise. That's the delusion that every single human being starts with. And when that assumption isn't challenged, then spirituality and yoga and meditation or qigong or any of the practices, add in there any kind of Gestalt psychology, even EFT or working with crystals or whatever it is only going to reinforce the fundamental belief that I'm broken and need to be fixed. Because if that's the attitude, if I do enough yoga, if I meditate, it's not working. Okay, I'll meditate 2 hours a day now, or 5 hours a day, or I'll go off into the forest for 3 months, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, more and more demanding. But we never challenge the fundamental premise. The fundamental premise is there something really really wrong with you? The answer is no. So the image you're holding of yourself, you're trying to improve. I refer to that as giving medicine to a ghost. It's not who you are. You're doing self-help on someone who doesn't exist. Quite literally, you know, quite literally, you're giving medicine to a cadaver. So what I want to do is direct your, yes, and you will end up in despair in that direction, right? Because after a while, you're going to go, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm doing it right. I'm doing it honestly. And it's not working. And it's not getting me there. I'm still not happy. That is the most significant point in your spiritual growth that you could ever experience. And I'm happy that you got there. Because as long as there's a hope in those things, you're going to keep doing them. And then you're going to keep blaming yourself because it's not working right. Or I got to do something else. I've got to try, got to be more disciplined, try to do it harder. I lived like a monk for many years. I mean, I just took care of what I had to take care of. I was celibate. I didn't drink. I didn't, nothing. I mean, I was absolutely abstinent from everything. I lived like a monk. I wish I had actually read the story of Buddha long before I did, or I would have realized that that way doesn't work. Because the problem is that you're stuck in a sense of identity and you're trying to improve that sense of identity. And you might for a minute. But because it's not who you really are, because it is purely conceptual, because it is just an idea and a false idea at that, it has no substance to it. It will shift. It will change. You'll be sitting on top of the world 1 minute and you'll be just like groveling in the dirt the next until you see through it. So the point of satsang is to direct you towards the fundamental premise. And the fundamental premise is you are not broken. You just think you are. And the image you're holding of yourself doesn't need to be improved. It needs to be abandoned. You are not anyone who needs yoga, who needs meditation, who needs a teacher, who needs anything. That's who you actually are. Now, I'm not saying that you have to you throw all that stuff out. What I always recommend is what you do is you begin to shift the perspective. When you do your yoga practice next, don't do it in order to get something. Simply be present with it. Do it for the sheer sake of doing it. I'm doing the yoga. Who's doing the yoga? The real me is doing the yoga. And the real me doesn't need to do yoga. And he doesn't need to yoga to make himself better. And with that, you can just do yoga. When you drive, just drive. When you eat, just eat. This is mindfulness. And so when you're practicing yoga, your mind is going to want to go to the reward you're going to get for doing it. Bring it back to just the moment. Whether yoga, qigong, your meditation is the same thing. I'm going to start doing some weekly short, brief meditations on Facebook, live and pre-recorded, that I'll be doing once a week starting in November. So meditation, to really do meditation, and I should give you a link to, I've got a meditation called Meditating on the Meditator. It's here on YouTube. You can look it up. I don't know exactly what the link is now. Somebody out there does know what it is. You can put it in the chat, please. Meditating on the Meditator. Again, it is not to improve yourself. It's to discover who you actually are. So when you meditate as someone who's not broken. When you go to work as someone who's not broken. When you wake up in the morning, wake up as someone who's not broken, who doesn't need to be fixed. And watch the difference when you approach life from the point of view of perfection, which is the spiritual truth, rather than the point of view of perfectibility. And watch the difference that it has in your life, Mark. This may sound cruel, but I'm happy you got to the point of despair. I did. Because then the bullshit drops away. And you go, well, wait a minute, what's really going on? I mean, I call it the self-help help treadmill because can't believe the number of students I have got who have been spiritually disillusioned and spiritually and really just disillusioned with the whole personal development self-help thing because it doesn't work, or at least it only works temporarily. It'll be a little gain and then something falling away. It's not that the techniques are completely invalid. It's just that if I am laboring under the assumption that I am essentially flawed and need to be fixed, that I'm imperfect and need to be perfected, that I am, material and human and I've got to somehow become divine, as long as that premise is there, it's going to infect every single practice. And that's why the practices don't work as well. If you remove that, the practice stands by itself, and then yoga is just for yoga. And you'll find out that if you really don't like it, you don't do it. You don't have to do it in order to attain the state. If you don't like meditating, you don't do it. You will find those ways of living that are harmonious with the growing sense of perfection that is you. But does that help you, Mark? I'm going to check through and see. As I said, I'm glad. I'm glad you reached the point of despair. It means you're done with it. You don't need that anymore. You don't need those kinds of practices. Remember, you've heard me talk a great deal about the Heart Sutra, which ultimately ends with the end of all practices. You go beyond all practice, you go beyond all teaching into the pure reality of your being, your true Buddha nature, and then you and Buddha are one. So, oh, thank you for that question. That's wonderful. Tom says, happiness is always out of reach if you crave attaining it. Yes, but it's more subtle than that. It's always out of reach as long as you see it as something separate from yourself. If you don't see it as separate from yourself, the craving and attachment can arise to it. Buddha didn't say that desire was the cause of suffering, right? He said that the desire for something that doesn't exist. Happiness does not exist in the object you are reaching for. Now, that's the way the mind works. Happiness just can't stand on its own. It has to be conditional, right? So when happiness is realized to be the actual perfume, the fragrance, the character of your nature, you stop looking for it out there and you start turning more deeply and more thoroughly within to discover it because you know it's there. And the way it's discovered, it's not like a thing, even an internal object you grasp. You just begin to notice all the places where you have been giving it away. You notice all the places that you have been looking for it, and you realize, oh, it's not there. And you withdraw your attention more. And then eventually it just illuminates itself and arises. So happiness is out of reach as long as you see yourself as a person reaching for happiness. That's the actual cause. Buddha never said that that freedom from suffering meant you got rid of all the conditions that cause suffering. You don't get rid of the suffering, you get rid of the sufferer, the one who is suffering. The self-image that is not really you is the one who suffers. Find out if that image, if that one is actually you. And you find then that the cause of all suffering is identification with the flow of thoughts that you have mistaken for yourself. Dave Scott, namaste from Philly. Hello, Dave. Good to have you. Mahamaya Horvat, dear G, greetings from Croatia. Hello. Wonderful. Poppy is here from Greece. Yosef, hi from India. Hi, Yosef. Joanna is from Mexico. Juan from, can't read it. It's in another language. Somewhere out there. South of France, we have Pearl in south of France. Um, oh my goodness. Hello, GN World from Melbourne, Australia. Namaste. That's Shanti. Um, Pearl again. How do we accept the feeling of something wrong? The feeling is stronger than the thought, and anything that's thought or said is still not freedom. The contracted, unhappy feeling is in the body. Yes, yes, absolutely it is. It is felt. It is not thought. The thoughts actually come later. There's a feeling. But actually, there's another level. A level I call this level energetic assumptions. Buddha referred to it as the repository consciousness. This wire just keeps always getting out of the way. Um, they call it vasanas in Sanskrit. Um, there's a subtle feeling that all is not right, well, that I am not safe, that I'm not happy, that I'm missing something. Yeah, that something is wrong. The words you put. Um, that feeling arises from the sense of identification as a person. The identification with the body and the flow of thoughts that creates a sense of separation rather than identification with the consciousness that is aware of the body and the flow of thoughts. It is only that. You go, what I'm presenting is the direct path. It is not a process you go through. It is a direct seeing that sense of something being wrong can only come if I've identified myself as somebody separate from the rest of the world. At which point, if that's the case, then I need stuff from the rest of the world. I immediately become grasping, wanting to hold on, seeking, desiring, lusting, hoarding, accumulating huge amounts of wealth, or not. It is that feeling that is driving the world, and the identification with that sense of separation is the ego. That's all it is. The ego is the sense of I that is identified with a separate self, but that separate self isn't real. There is no separate self. It is only an idea. Now, it's an idea we've all learned, right? And as far as I can tell, in terms of spiritual development, we all have to. We all have the fall. We all fall into this belief of being a separate self. And yes, when that belief takes root, when that energetic assumption takes root, and it's a belief, it's not a belief up here, it is a visceral belief of the body. It manifests as sensation, as emotion, and as thought. But it's actually living at a level deeper than thought. Matter of fact, it can go so deep that it actually drives multiple lifetimes. It's what gives rise to another life identified with another form. The answer is always the same. The identification with form has got to go. The whole point of real non-dual spiritual inquiry is to dismantle the sense of I. The way Muji puts it, I think, is absolutely brilliant. He says, the one who starts the inquiry does not finish the inquiry, but is finished by the inquiry. You see, everybody starts on the spiritual path with a sense of self, a sense of identity, and then they want to improve this sense of self and the sense of identity. Of course, it's perfectly natural for us to want to grow and expand and all of that. But little along, as you move along the path, though, and you have frustrations and you don't really seem to get very far, a lot of things can improve, but there, that underlying feeling is still there. You have to go beyond that. So it isn't it's no longer about a separate self that is trying to become better. It begins now to be consciousness awakening to itself and recognizing that separate self is not who I am. I have basically been mesmerized into thinking of myself as someone who I'm not. I've literally created a self-image that is finite, limited, condensed, stuck. And of course, I didn't really even create it. It just happened, right? It seems to be the way the nervous system works. I created my own process, for lack of a better word, called inner reconciliation. And it too is something to be abandoned eventually. But the whole point of it was to reestablish the relationship between you and all the feelings, thoughts, and sensations that you have. Because what happens, especially in the spiritual path, is that, well, we think, I've got all these negative thoughts, got to get rid of them. I got these negative feelings, got to get rid of them. Say all this stuff going on in my body and this feeling of the other shoe's going to drop, I've got to get rid of it. Believe me, I tried for decades to do that and it doesn't work. You can't get rid of it because it doesn't operate on the same level. So what do? You're stuck with it for your life? I did something quite unexpected, didn't even realize I was doing at the time. But instead of trying to use spirituality to quiet or transcend these things, I simply turned directly to and started walking towards them. All of the negative thoughts, feelings, self-sabotage, all the stuff, programmed responses, every bad feeling I was having, the worse it felt, the more I moved towards it. The end result, suddenly this great expanse began to open up. And all these things that I had been fighting before, I realized there was nothing wrong with them. And that I had artificially created a conflict simply by the way I was interpreting them. I had this small view of myself as the person. And if this person's going to be healthy and happy, I've got to get rid of all this stuff, right? But as that began to dissolve, I would turn more and more towards these things and discover there's nothing wrong with them. All of those feelings, they're not negative at all. They're not a problem at all. That they're only a problem when I say they're a problem. I'm creating the problem with that saying. They inherently are not a problem. That's why I refer to it as inner reconciliation. You're reconciling with these feelings. You can notice in your question how to accept the feeling of something wrong. The feeling is stronger than a thought, and anything that's thought, or anything that's thought, and it's or said is still not, and anything that is thought or said is still not freedom. The contracted, unhappy feelings is in the body. Turn towards it fully. Accept it fully. Embrace it fully. Drop all your conflict with it. Right? It takes two to make a fight. If you stop fighting, there's nothing it can do anymore. It will simply dissolve. And that feeling of unhappiness you're talking about will stand out. And suddenly it won't be just this feeling you have to get rid of. It'll become information that's important for you to hear. Sometimes just creating that space where you are completely without conflict, you are saying yes to whatever happens, is enough for that energy to be set free and dissolve. That can resolve the deepest traumas that we've ever had. Sometimes it will want to show you some stuff. It will reveal things. It will, as that trauma releases, some stuff will come up. You want that to happen. You really want to be free. We have to be free from all of the assumptions and the traumas and all the stuff that has created a visceral sense of being a separate self. As the sense of a separate self begins to dissolve, and when I'm telling you you're not your body and you're believing it, and I can tell you can because it's the truth. we instinctively know it. But then we think, well, what is all these feelings and stuff? Well, those feelings are simply the residue of the original traumas that made us feel as if we were separate, which is simply the almost the inevitable thing that happens when you have a body. The body is way more than we think it is. And believe me, the body will transform before your very eyes when you drop your conflict about it. It is the conflict with life that creates suffering. Life has no suffering in it. Does that help, Pearl? 13930? Does that help? How to abandon the sticky, messy stuff. I think I covered that. Yeah. Um, if I didn't nail it for you, well, you tell me, and I'll do some more. I don't mind. Um, Katie, hi from London. Hi. I'm seeing some new names here today. This is wonderful. Juan. Juan. I can't read the. I don't even know what language that is, Juan. Poppy. Oh, thank you, Juan. I'm sure yours is too. Oh, he obviously wrote something to Poppy. That's really funny because they're both in, yeah, that's in Greek, I guess. Yeah. Pearl says, but the body needs help. Symptoms, etc. Beyond despair is still extreme physical discomfort. Yes. And I'm going to invite you now. Now you're in extreme physical discomfort. You're having problems. There's stuff going on. Have it checked out. See if there's something wrong with you. What I find is that 80 to 90% of the symptoms that people come to me with, there is no physical cause for it. Sometimes there are some physical symptoms, but oftentimes there are physical symptoms, but they can find no physical cause. And allopathic medicine, modern medicine, um, which is very primitive in my view, only deals with the suppression of symptoms. They are not about cures. That's not just cynical on my part. I mean, there's been internal policies from drug companies that have been made public, and that's what they say. We are not here to cure anything. We are here to suppress symptoms. You cannot make a long-term business out of curing things. You have to leave people sick, but then supply them with symptom suppression for the rest of their life. That's not healing, right? So you have to be suspect. I'm not a doctor, disclaiming, but you have to be suspect. You go, they say, we can't really find anything wrong with you, then you know it's energetic, right? You know that the real cause of what's going on in your body is energetic. Step one, stop fighting it. Okay, if you've eliminated some physical cause that you can easily fix, um, then you can turn all your attention to it's an energetic pattern. It's a stuck trauma, and you don't have to take it like this is great spiritual insight that this is like known now in the world of study of trauma and the like, that it can cause physical illness. That's just stuck energy, and the energy is stuck, one, because it was too terrifying at the time to experience, and number two, we haven't matured to the point we can let that energy release itself. And of course, for most people, they're afraid to let it release itself because it might be overwhelming, as it was at the time. Well, the beauty of this approach, the inner reconciliation approach, is that it doesn't do that. It doesn't destroy the system when it's releasing. It simply discharges the traumatic energy. But I don't care how uncomfortable the body is. Your mind is what's telling you you can't deal with it. It's not telling you that. It's just a sensation in the body. That's all it is. That's all you're feeling. The level of intensity is assigned by the mind. And I say, oh, this is really extreme. This is really tough. And now the mind is creating suffering. There's no suffering in the actual physical symptoms themselves, even if it's painful. The open door to healing is when we can totally accept it as it is. Now I know sometimes that's easier said than done, especially when we've been so trained to resist that pain. But I have found consistently, time and time again, that when I and the people that I work with turn towards it, it doesn't last very long. Sometimes it gets really intense for a second, and poof, it's gone. Oftentimes it'll move around, it'll do things in your body, but you're going to find that the more you turn towards it, the more powerful you feel. You realize you've been intimidated by something that doesn't need to intimidate you, that it's been your mind, your thoughts about it that have been driving you scared, not the thing itself. And that is liberating. That becomes incredibly powerful because now you're not just taking a back seat. You're not just a victim of life anymore. You're not just a victim of circumstances. You are determining the quality of the conversation with your inner world. And you do that by creating this atmosphere of total openness and safety. Believe me, your mind is telling you, don't want to do this, it's going to get worse. I'm telling you, do it. Let it, let it speak. Be with it, no matter how painful it is. There's been a couple of things that have gone on in my life, and they've gone on my whole life. I mean, St. Paul referred to this thorn in his side, this thing that was just never resolved. It just kept going. I've had a couple of those things. And some of the greatest moments of my life is when I completely and totally said, okay, if you're here for the rest of my life, fine. Total surrender to it. Sometimes they stay, sometimes they go. Sometimes they, oh, that's it. There's no more, because all the resistance is gone. But I'm not this body. I'm pure consciousness. So whatever's happening in this body, the thoughts, the feeling, all of the programmed responses, all of that is the destiny of the body, not mine. And therefore, it may play itself out. It may go my entire life. It may not. I am no longer concerned about that. And so I am free. I do not require any conditions whatsoever. If I do, then I now am dependent upon, I'm enslaved by those conditions, and I'm not free. Freedom means free, means completely free of dependency on all conditions, period, for well-being. The sense of well-being gets liberated. Does that help, Pearl? Oh, no, that wasn't Pearl. Yeah, that's right. It was Pearl. Great. Mira Angel, hi from Russia. Hi. Hi, Mira. Mark says, thanks, GP. Helpful. Good. Good. Anything more? Please let me know. Remington. Remington, my buddy, how are you? Inner reconciliation is worth purchasing, guys. If it will help you focus on knowing yourself. It will help you focus on knowing yourself and not just getting something. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, people often accuse me of thinking, well, what do you want? Just, live in poverty or live in a mountain or something? No, it's not there's nothing wrong with getting something. But when we depend on getting things for happiness, well, we're screwed. Because all dependency is going to, you cannot control a world that is impermanent. And so you have to go to the one place you can, and that is your conscious awareness. That has remained the same. What you have been aware of has never stopped changing. But your awareness of it, the knowingness of it, that's never changed. Let's see, one that was marked. Show. Oh, they marked it. It was my own link. Yes, they they marked it because it was a link. I'm going to make sure it goes outside. Okay. Anyway, Shanti just posted the link for everyone in the chat for the meditating on the meditator meditation that I have for free here on YouTube. So you can check that out, and it'll pick up this theme of mindfulness and really being present. Actually, I'm going to make the text a little bigger over here so I don't have to lean in and squint. I got a new screen here, and it's bigger, and the print's a lot smaller. So let's see. Thank you, GP. Marcel, Kathy Bolger says hello. Hello, Kathy, or Borger. Let's see. Marcel Schmidt, thank you so much, GP. Your talks are changing the world. Oh, wow. I hope so. Lord knows the world needs changing. Yeah. Isabel says hello. Hello, Isabel. Yusuf. Wow, I almost entered in a trance while listening to you. Thank you. Your direct pointing out instructions are crystal clear. Great. Wonderful. Wow. Pearl says, well, I had good teachers. I should point that out. Standing on the shoulder of giants, um, just over and over. I'm reading the Heart Sutra for the seventh time in the Lankavatara for the seventh time, because every time I read them, it just sinks in deeper. As I said, the Buddha was the greatest teacher of all, all time. Although my own teacher isn't far behind him, who's Muji. Anyway, Pearl says, okay, accepting is the way. I do feel like I should face it, and it's scary. Yeah, but Pearl, it's not scary. Your mind is telling you that it's scary. Notice, life does not create fear, except the most primitive, fundamental, right? I mean, the bear is chasing you, right? That's real. That's fear. That's what the body knows to be fear. If that's not there, right, then it's just something happening. It's a pain in the body, something like that. Or, I scratch myself or something. It's like, there's no inherent fear in it because it's not really a direct threat. But the mind says it's a threat and therefore engenders a sense of fear where there's actually nothing to be afraid of. Believe me, your body, the whole system is not going to let you walk out and die. It's not going to do it. So you don't have to worry about, if I get rid of the fear, well, then something bad's going to happen to me. No, not at all. So you're not really facing the fear. You are turning from the fear, which is secondary, to the actual feeling itself. And the mind's just saying, oh, you don't want to do that. It's very, very scary. But that's completely created by the mind. It isn't real. It's not real. Turn towards the feeling. See if the feeling itself is scary or if that's just been a reactive pattern that's happened in the mind. Find out. Just look at the feeling. There's a sensation there. And then your mind says, oh, this is terrible. This is going to be really bad. Wait a minute. I don't have to listen to you. What made you the authority? Right? You're just a bunch of a pattern of thoughts. There's no truth in you. Turn your attention away from that directly to the sensation itself and watch what happens. You'll begin to discern really clearly the story about the sensation and the actual sensation itself. And you'll find that fear just beginning to dissipate. And then the beauty of it is you'll know very clearly what the body actually needs. If the body does need something, it could be food, some certain kind of food it needs, certain kind of exercise it needs, certain kind of, play that it needs. Or there may be something structurally that needs to be, that needs some help or needs some adjustment. You'll see clearly because you won't be seeing through the deluded eyes of fear anymore. You will be looking through the eyes of mastery. So, thank you, Pearl. She says, yes, good. Yusef says, but mind wanders back in day-to-day life, and it might need practice of some kind to stay connected to true self, right? Yes and no. I highly recommend practices. Meditation, I still do it. It's just part of what I do. I love to go to that place where I just can, I don't exist anymore. And I'm just here. And I let life unfold and I let the day unfold. It's going to unfold. Here's the deal. Your attention and the wandering of your mind does not change the reality of who you are. It only has an effect on the quality of the experience. The mission here is to go beyond merely looking for a different quality of experience to completely accepting the quality of experience just as it is and letting yourself sink back into this place that is prior to all experience. This place that is simply conscious, that without this, there'd be no experience. That the experience is changing, this is not. This is here, solid, unchanging. just, it's like a rock. It's unmovable. So notice that it is the mind that wanders. Right? Your attention is not consciousness. That is simply a lens through which consciousness is perceiving. And you can tell because you can focus on a million different things, but it's the same consciousness that's always doing the seeing. So the attention is not infinite in nature. And with that attention, remember, it's an entire system. So something happens in the environment, there's a reaction in the system. That's what the nervous system was designed to do. That reaction is probably a programmed response. It can be left over from the past. It could be very appropriate to what the moment needs. It could be totally inappropriate for what the moment needs. But you see that it is simply a reaction, a pattern, nothing more. When you recognize that, you recognize that that which is perceiving attention, perceiving the reactions, perceiving the mind wandering back and forth in the day, that has never changed. That is who you are. That is where you put down roots. That's where you buy real estate. Right? You're not trying to create an experience of perfectly focused attention and crystal clarity, mindfulness all the time. Even Buddha couldn't do that. Nobody can do that. When Buddha got sick, I'm sure he sniffled and sneezed and was not, 100% on his game. It's not mystical. Right? Nobody can maintain it all the time. But that's because it's not who you are. It is part of the picture. It is part of the changing kaleidoscope that is the dynamic consciousness. The formless, ultimate, absolute consciousness doesn't shift at all. And you can notice that. You say the mind's wandering. I would say, who notices that the mind's wandering? Oh, I am. So are you the mind? No. Is that which is noticing the wandering, mind wandering, the attention fluctuating, is that wandering? No, it's seeing it. So see, the key here is not attempting to have a different kind of experience, but to see that which has never changed or shifted and makes all experience possible. Is this clear? Right? This consciousness is what perceives everything else. Everything else changes. This doesn't. That is what you are. That's where the sense of identity goes. Then, so what if your mind wanders? What does it have to do with you? Right? Then now the whole conflict with ourselves. Again, we're reconciling now with the mind. That's a reconciliation. Let the mind wander. Who cares? You don't have to stop it. That's a waste. That's like trying to stop the wind. It's like, standing on the shore of the ocean trying to push the waves back out. I mean, good luck. Right? This is what minds do. The problem isn't the mind. The problem is we identify ourselves as the mind. So we think these constant changing thoughts and attitudes and focal points of attention are us. We thought, how do I get stable? They're not you. You are the consciousness that is aware of it. Become that sensitive, that subtle. That's the only practice, really. That's the real meditation. It's noticing who's meditating, who's actually doing the perceiving, and then seeing for yourself that the ultimate perceiver, the absolute perceiver, is never shifting. It's always there, and it cannot be perceived. You simply know it because you are it. Does that help you, Yusuf? Sophia. Love that name. Sophia Burgas Adutat. Butchering these names. I'm so lucky. What a nice surprise to find you here live? Hello from Switzerland. Oh, here live. You here live. Got it. Right. Hello from Switzerland. Hello, Sophia. Lucky for me to find you here too. Look at this. Isn't that wonderful? We all happen to the same place. Kathy Borger says we all face the same problem. Yeah, we do. We all have the same problem, which is mistaken identity. Mistaking that which is the appearance, the manifestation of the formless consciousness for the self. That's it. That's all there is to it. It's the one theme. it's so simple. Wow. Pearl said something here. Thank you, Shanti. Oh, Shanti says, the big scary C is apparently in my body for the second time. I rejected conventional treatment as it made my immune system break down the first time. So it's my biggest push to understand. Boy, I need to talk to my friend who has gone through it both with her husband and herself, but through alternative means. I do know some other places that help, with people, but they went through traditional means, chemotherapy and that sort of stuff. And I know for a fact, I'm not a doctor. Disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. So you can't take anything I have to say as of any medical credibility whatsoever. But I personally am convinced that all of our methods for the curing of cancer are barbaric and cause more damage than help anything, and are really driven more by profit than by the desire to cure. And sorry to be so blunt about it, but that's how I feel. That said, there are many safe alternative cures that all over the world. I should start collecting together some resources for that kind of thing. Shanti, you live in Australia, I think. I'm so that you're going to have different rules about that sort of thing. I mean, the big pharmaceutical companies control the medical community, insurance, the AMA, and big pharma control medicine in the U.S. So it's, you can't get access to the same kind of things. What I would highly recommend, though, what I can offer is that word, the big C, cancer, has an enormous amount of emotional overhead laid on top of it, most of which is not valid. It's fear that is created in a lot of people's minds. It's created by those same people who profit from it. It's also, one of the scourges of our age. It's directly tied to the toxicity of our environment, the crappy quality of our food. There's all sorts of things that go into the whole matrix and complex of what makes us healthy or unhealthy. But what I would first recommend, is I recommend juice feasting. You can juicefeast.com, which is a way of basically juicing that may be a little bit extreme. So, having a green smoothie, I mean, nothing but, maybe a little apple to sweeten it, some lemon juice, some ginger, carrot, romaine, kale, spinach, all sorts. Your really good cucumber, celery, really solid vegetables. Drink about 32 ounces of that a day to really up the nutritional level that your body is receiving. And then spiritually and emotionally, put aside all the ideas that your mind says about it, all of the fearful story, the fearful narrative, the cures that are as painful and as destructive as the illness itself. Put all of that aside and just feel your body and begin to reconcile with your body. Don't think of your body as doing something to hurt you. right? Your body, it's your body that is suffering. It's your body. It's the wrong word, suffering. It's the body that is mortal, not you. It's the body that can die, not you. And so you want to start a conversation with your body and say, what are you trying to tell me? What is the message here? Is there some trauma you've been holding this life or a past life? What is it what's the gift that you have to give me? I know there's wisdom in this, that you're not here for no reason, that this hasn't happened for no reason. I'm willing to learn. This is really important. It's a big shift to go from the position of being willing to listen to the wisdom of the body rather than simply trying to force the body into a shape that you want it to be in, or to apply any of this spiritual stuff or any medicinal stuff simply to get rid of something that is happening in the body. Nothing, everything happens for a reason. Nothing is empty of meaningless. Right? There's energetic stuff going on. And at the root, it is totally energetic. I personally do not believe at all in interventionist medicine. Again, I'm not a doctor. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Take care of your own health, blah, blah, blah. Right? But what I've seen, it is all energetic. So learning how to have a real communication, a real open dialogue with the energy system, which is way more than just a mindless physical body. There's a real intelligence here. Is the open door, even to letting go of the idea of doing that in order to fix it. That's the big one. You're not even opening up a dialogue so that you can fix it. You're opening up to know. You can fix it. Maybe it'll fix it. Maybe it won't. But you will no longer be afraid. And that's what matters. You will no longer be fearful. You will be able to live fully for as long as you have. And of course, when you're not afraid, there's less illness in the body. It's simply a fact. When the fear goes away, the energy goes away. When there's an openness that the energy can move through you and doesn't get stuck, the cause of all illness has been relieved. This is how I see it. And I would never, it'd be irresponsible for me to say, hey, stop your treatments and just do this. I say do them simultaneously. If you're doing some kind of treatment for something, yes, but if you are not going deeply into the energetic and emotional aspects of it, you're missing 90% of the deal. So I hope that helps you, Shanti. Yeah. She says, mind can grab this sometimes. I'm already who I am. I'm trusting myself. Yes, let that deepen. Let that deepen. Oh, it's waking me up. I have nothing else. Mind can grab this sometimes. Yeah. Oh, you have a lot else. You have you. You have an infinite else. Okay. This does not touch you. No illness touches consciousness. It is experienced by consciousness, but it cannot affect consciousness. This is mind-blowing when you realize this. Whether what your experience is absolutely wonderful and perfect and blissful and the best thing, ecstatic, or if it's just grievous and horrific and horrible and difficult. Really, life is just life. All of those superlatives I just threw out there, they're all made up by the mind. None of those are part of life. Life is simply doing what it does. And if we really want to be in harmony with life, we will inquire deeply as to why it's taking the shape that it is, because it has a reason. It isn't an enemy to be fought. It is a living intelligence to be listened to. Kathy is in Germany. Hello from Germany. Hi, Kathy. Again, thank you for telling me where you are. Kay Lee, happy to find you all back here. Thanks, GP. You are very, 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 very welcome. Oops. Wow. A lot here. Kailash says, you didn't take my question, just wanted your perspective on it. Did I miss a question there, Kamalesh? I'm terribly sorry. Sometimes things buzz by so quickly that I miss them. I'm doing a quick scan back to see if I find it. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Does personal memory pass on to the next life after death where it is stored? And when the past memory is normally never recalled, what's the point of such a memory? No. When we think of memory, we think of memories of very distinct incidences, but that happens very rarely. And even so, it's almost impossible to prove if it's an actual memory from a past life or something like that. But that's not really the issue. It's an energetic pattern that gets uh, it's kind of like the feeling of intense distress is there. That does pass from life to life. That can be, the traumas can run so deeply that they will in fact lock in on a level of trauma. Again, Buddha called it the repository consciousness. It is the place that gives rise to life after life after life. It is a different level than our normal memory. When there's that kind of an energetic disruption that is there, which is really very fundamental. This is closer to who we are than just this life form. It will manifest in whatever form the conditions of this particular life will allow it to. I mean, it just takes whatever form is available, right? You put water in a tire, it takes the shape of a tire. You put it in a cup, it takes the shape of the cup. That's the nature of it. It just conforms itself to whatever the environment of this particular life is, but it maintains its essential character as some kind of an energetic distress or energetic problem, right? It when I work with things like that and they come up, and these traumatic stuff comes up, I simply let the energy express itself however it wants. I don't question, was this really a past life or not? Most of the time, not always, most of the time, it doesn't matter. Did it really happen like that? Doesn't matter, because the energy is real. The distressed energy is real. And whatever vehicle it needs to express itself to the degree that it can begin to discharge the trauma and heal is all I care about. So if it's making up a story, fine. If it's having a dream, fine. If it's an actual description of something that happened 1,000 years ago, fine. I've seen all of those. I've seen all of those things happen. Again, I don't try to verify the historical accuracy or lack of it. It's irrelevant, because all we're interested in is freedom, not whether or not we got the history books right. We're only interested in freedom. So the point of the memory coming up isn't necessarily that it's a memory. It's because it may not be. It is simply an energy that is wanting finally to go free, is taking whatever form you'll let it take. And energy can take any form. It's like water. It takes whatever form, the form of the container you put it in. It doesn't actually have a form. And so the end result then is that it will, when you simply let it do whatever it needs to do without questioning it, without making it legitimize itself, without, be literally true, it has the freedom to just do whatever it needs to do. And that's all I care about. Because when you give it that freedom and provide it the safety, it heals. Because all of the stuff that's been holding it in place has been released. And now it can just do whatever it needs to do to go back to the infinite ocean of energy that is the potential of everything. Does that help, Kamalesh? And thank you for pointing that out. I realize I missed a whole bunch of stuff here. For some, it just kind of buzzed by really quick. Remington says, how do I accept everything I can't change? How do I accept everything I can't have? Well, you just do it. Right? Who's telling you you can't? I mean, is it there? You know, I can't, the feeling that I can't change it. First off, that may not even be true. Also, how to everything I can't have. Maybe that's not true either. Maybe you can. Maybe you can change it. Maybe you can have it, right? So discern between this feeling, right, that you want something to be different, or you want something you don't have, right? And then the story about, well, you can't have it, and I you always can't get what you want, and that just go to the feeling of not having. That's an illusion, because it only arises out of a sense of separation. No sense of separation. There's no sense of anything not changing, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of it's in your control anyway. You're simply letting life do what life does, right? Does life argue, how can I accept everything I can't change? Water doesn't do that. Water doesn't come rushing down the stream, go to a rock and go, oh, what do I do now? I can't change. It just goes around it. Right? That's how you do it. You simply just kind of flow with life. Stop saying this is something that should be different. Something I can't have, and just go with the flow of life. This is what I have. What do I do with what I have? This is where creativity comes from, right? I mean, creativity doesn't start with having everything it wants and then tries to make something. It's, this is what I got. Oh, I got this. Okay, I got this paper. I got these pencils. Okay, I can draw that. I don't have a drum set, but I have a paint can. Huh, look at that. Sounds pretty good. I'll drum on a paint can. So that's how you do it. That's how you relieve the suffering from it. And rather than, I mean, notice you can just say, how do I accept everything I can't change? You're saying that I don't want to accept everything. I want it to change. But if you accept it, then there's nothing to change. And the whole thing just kind of collapses. The whole idea just falls apart. How do I accept what I can't have? Well, you start with the point of view that nothing is separate from you. At which point having or not having becomes irrelevant. Right? And then you notice that things just kind of come as they're needed. The sense of possessiveness doesn't need to be there. It doesn't need to be so strong. Things of having and not having, the idea of sharing and community becomes much more reasonable, much more natural. I hope that helps. Wow. God, there's a lot of a lot of questions today. What time is it? Oh, 2:18 or 5:18 or wherever you are. Okay, okay, I got that one. Eli, hey, Mr. G, can you talk about the nature of thought and where those dudes come from and how we can even interpret them? Anything about thoughts, really, I have no idea what they are. Good. Good. Because they're quite mysterious as our emotion, as everything that is experienced by consciousness. When we really look at it, we find, oh my God, it is so mysterious. It is more mysterious than we can even imagine mysterious being. I mean, it's what is a thought? Well, material science tries to put it in terms of synapse and chemicals and all of that. I say bullshit. It's like looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking for the Mona Lisa in the paint. It's not there, right? Consciousness isn't in the brain. I can't buy it. It's qualitatively so different. Yet that's where science has to look. That's the model, the model it uses, and so that's what it tries to describe thought as. But you, Eli, you're absolutely right. You don't have a clue. Neither do I. Nobody does. It is a total mystery. What is this? It's an aspect of consciousness, because it is consciousness. You know, it's not something that exists independently and that consciousness is aware of it. It's not two, it's one. It is consciousness. It is consciousness pondering its own nature. That's as close as I can get. What is it made of? Consciousness. What does it do? Expresses consciousness. That's the only place I can go, and it is a little bit feeble because it's consciousness. The mind says, no, it's consciousness. So the mind forms an idea about what consciousness is, associates it with all these things, and says, now I know what it is. No, you don't. All that does is say, it is a total mystery. What is thought? What is feeling? What is experience? Why do we exist at all? Why does anything exist at all? It's the Big Bang. We have all these theories. And I look at this and I go, really? I mean, that's it. So from the Big Bang to Shakespeare, to Beethoven's Ninth, I'm sorry, something's off here. Something's, yeah. I mean, the 100th monkey doesn't really cut it. So I think if we really want to appreciate the magnitude of life, we recognize the utter mystery of it. It is. That's undeniable. What is it? Well, in Buddhism, it's suchness. What is it? It's this. First there's a cup, then there is no cup, then there's a cup. First there's this solid object made of matter, then you realize that it's absolutely empty, and then you come back and it's just a cup. What is it? Cheers. That may sound very mysterious, very abstract, but take it in. The mind just kind of wants to take everything apart and analyze and see what it is, and yet when you do, the more you analyze it, the more you take it apart, you find there's nothing there. And yet there is something there. It's nothing and it's something. It is emptiness. This is what is meant by emptiness. Emptiness is the nature of things, not an aspect of them. I hope that helps, Eli. Dave Scott says, yes, that what you're looking for is where you are looking from St. Francis of Assisi, a real game changer. We're looking for love in all the wrong places. Amen. Yes. Yeah. And we just keep doing it too, because so many people have and let's face it, we have created a culture that wants us to be dissatisfied, afraid, alone, divided. The egoic powers of the world feed on that. The world is, the egoic powers of the world are just the pain body feeding on pain, trying to create more of it. What you're looking for is where you are looking from. That's a fact. It isn't out there. Nothing you're seeking is out there. It is all here, right within you. I point here, but it's not even here. This is, again, just a reference point in the body. The here I'm talking about is the here where you are right now, right? And of course, you're the one who defines here, aren't you? When I say here, for me to say here, it means you're there, but you're here. Yes. It's always there, isn't it? You are always here. Where you are looking from. Write that. That here is what you've been looking for. And everything you've ever wanted is there. Because the only thing we've ever wanted is peace. And that's there. Akram says, hi from Yemen. Oh, Yemen. Wonderful. This is retracted. Hello, this is Ursula from Madeira Island, Portugal. Hi, Ursula. Wonderful to have you. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Pearl says, yes, thank you. Very good. Remington says, on a thought level, it's amazing. On a Oh, inner reconciliation he's talking about. On a spiritual level, it helps you grow without even noticing. Yeah. What I was looking for is the way to come to genuine inner harmony. And that had to be more than just some technique. It had to be more than just an assumed position of power. It had to be a comprehensive explanation of everything, and it had to be able to go beyond the merely personal. And inner reconciliation is what I finally came up with. So it seems to work, although it's, like I say, it's not the ultimate. It is a path. Let's see. We're stacking the day out. We all face the same problem. Thank you, Shanti, the big scary sea, waking me up. So sometimes you didn't take my question. That's where I left off. I got your question this time around, Kamalash. And thank you for saying that, because for some reason it just scrolled really fast past a bunch of stuff. This does happen when I get done. When I get a bunch of questions that that I'm probably not going to be able to get to them all, then suddenly the scrolling gets off and I can skip some. So if I miss any of your questions, just say it again. Matt Sterling says, hi, GP. I've been practicing insight meditation daily for about 7 years. Good. I feel a nice sense of calmness when meditating, but afterwards, when I get on with my daily life, I generally don't feel happy at all. Yes, this is one of the problems with meditation techniques. They don't go deep enough. And oftentimes they create the space that gives you the sense of openness and spaciousness and freedom. But then we have this feeling like we're leaving that space and going out into the world. And that's why it's got to go deeper. The meditation has got to go into the non-dual inquiry to find out that, discover that you are the consciousness behind it. And while, yes, in meditation, there will be an experience of calm and stillness. And that calmness and stillness is being witnessed by something even deeper, something that is perfectly calm, perfectly still, perfectly at peace. And that you're then feeling the perfume of that is an emotional and psychological calmness and peace. Then you get up from your cushion, you go out into the world, and now the nervous system is reacting to the world. It's responding to things, to people, to events. That's what it was designed to do, right? And of course, if we don't know any better, we think, oh, I'm not calm anymore, right? Right. But you're not emotionally. That's a different set of reactions happening in the environment. But the same consciousness that was aware of the quiet and stillness during meditation is aware of the tumult and the reactiveness going on in the world when you're interacting with the world. When you realize that you are that consciousness and not what's happening, that's when you've turned the corner. That's when that stillness will become more than conditional. It won't be just something that happens when you're meditating. You'll begin to sense it there all the time. And therefore, the reactions of the nervous system will continue to happen, but they will become less. They will become, because there'll be no story there. A reaction takes place. There's no story to say, oh, oh, damn, I've lost my peace. And you go, no, I haven't. That's the nervous system reaction. I'm reacting. I'm not my nervous system. I'm the consciousness that's aware of the nervous system. That brings a calmness even to the nervous system. At first, not at first. At first, you're just going to see it and it's going to react. But little by little, because you're not contributing to the reaction with the story, like, oh, I reacted. It's a problem. My meditation isn't working. That's just a story, right? It's not true, right? And when you realize that that's not true, that that's just been a story that's created, and you're just experiencing the impermanence of life, the fluctuating, the emotional stuff going on and not going on, at that moment, you step back in this place and you begin to establish yourself in that place that is prior to all experience. And then the experience can come and go as it please, and it doesn't matter. And because it doesn't matter, because you don't mind, it doesn't have the same amount of sting, which means it doesn't have the same amount of energy. It doesn't have the same amount of anything. And eventually that stillness will begin to permeate your everyday life. And you'll find you're not reacting. And that stuff isn't happening. And that peace that you know on the cushion is just as present in the midst of the most chaotic situations. Nothing perturbs you. Nothing throws you off anymore. That's the great achievement. That's the great thing. So, yeah, good. Got you there. Yosef says, yes, thank you very much. That answered it. Good. Fantastic. Palang. Hello from Israel. Hello. An amazing side effect of awakening is the emergence of wisdom known to everyone, accessible naturally to those who awoke from the dream. Yes. Yeah, it isn't acquired wisdom. It's innate. It's this recognition. Because you see, the you think you are doesn't wake up. Who you really are wakes up. Consciousness wakes up to itself. Right? We think, oh, I'm this person and this person is going to wake up. No. Consciousness is waking up from thinking they're the person. Consciousness is lost. Excuse me. The person gets abandoned during awakening. That's genuine awakening. There's a lot of talk about awakening these days, and it is, because you can look at it as gradations of awakening. We are far more clear about stuff. We are far more aware of inequality and prejudice and all of these kinds of things. That is an awakening, but that's not the awakening. The awakening is the recognition that you are not the one who is asleep. You are the consciousness that is aware of the sleeping one. And so, in a sense, consciousness is awakening to itself. And that is who you really are. So it's not like there's a GP who becomes awake, right? Consciousness awakens to the fact that GP does not exist. GP is just the thought, just an idea. And that consciousness that it is awakening, that it's not GP, is also not Patang. It's also not Anne or Shanti or Matt or Isabel. It's the one consciousness is awakening to itself. Shiva is awakening to himself. Shakti is awakening to herself. That I am not that. And it's the same in absolutely every one of us. Matt says, I get what you're saying about the mind not being you, etc. However, when depression, sadness, grief, loneliness, etc. arises, it feels horrible. And I hate feeling that way. I feel paralyzed by it. Yeah, and this is where it takes courage, my friend. Yeah. Notice when depression, okay. Now, the feelings in the body never announce them. They never give themselves a name. It is just a feeling. The mind says it's depression. And now it's got a story about depression. What a horrible thing is. I'm depressed. I can't stand it. I got to get out of this, right? Sadness, grief, loneliness are all words assigned to feelings. What I'm suggesting is that you go to the feeling without the words and find out what's actually there. Find out if it's as horrible as the mind has said it is. This is the exploration. It's really bold. It's like, my mind keeps telling me I shouldn't go there. It's really bad and it's horrible and I really got to get rid of this stuff. But what if my mind's wrong? What if that's just a really stupid idea that has been perpetuated over and over again? Wu Sin says, if the village idiot calls you stupid, do you pay any attention? Why do you listen to your mind? Find out for yourself. See, we assume, this feeling, it's depression and it's horrible and I am paralyzed by it. That's an assumption of the mind. Is the feeling itself saying you're paralyzed, or is it the mind's getting paralyzed because it can't do anything with it? It can't make it go away and it's still there. All right, well, drop trying to make it go away and just be 100% present and see what happens. See what these things are directly. not through the mind, not through some categorization, not through some narration. Look directly, go directly to the feeling itself. Abandon every idea about what you thought it was and watch what happens. You will be amazed. Try it. Really, try it. Try it right this second. Right this moment. Whatever the feeling is there, just feel it. And then your mind's going to go, oh, yeah, but this is like, okay, well, maybe. But thank you. I don't need you right now. I'm just going to feel this and see what happens. You'll be stunned. I was. It's like, what the? Suddenly this world opened up. Sometimes it would just disappear. Gone. Other times, a completely different world opened up. And suddenly I had access to different timelines, different dimensions, different lives. It was like I was not walking in the same territory. Because I'd stepped outside my mind's narrow idea about what it was. The mind said, oh, don't go there. It hurts. It's going to be bad. No good. Right? It's like, no, that's not true. You know, it's like somebody told you, don't go in there. That's a bad thing. And then you go in, you find out, well, this is great. Anne says, the trauma of tribal shame, if abandon the person, appears behind it and betray them and leave them behind, feel much freer versus take on their perspective. Yes. The tribal shame, the traumas are traumas to the nervous system. And the nervous system is simply trying to survive in an environment. That's what the whole traumatic environment of childhood, and sometimes, you know, it can be a traumatic death that carries over, all sorts of different things that create trauma. But they are the trauma of the energy system, not of you. It is identification with the narrowing of the nervous system, the cutting itself off from everything it can do in order to be able to fit within the environment that it's in. Right? When that is identified with, when consciousness, oh, I am this, then the person is created. The egoic mind is created in that moment. It doesn't really exist as a thing. Excuse me. When you see that, you will feel much freer immediately. But really see it. You have to really see it. She says, what is your take on this? So one of the things about inner reconciliation is that you are not broken. That it was not you who was conditioned. You are the pure consciousness that is unconditioned and has been aware of the entire thing from beginning to end. But you have identified with the conditioning, called it yourself, and thereby trapped yourself, imprisoned yourself in the narrow confines of what is nothing other than the nervous system simply trying to stay safe within the environment it happens to be in. I mean, the energy of life gets poured into a container. It takes the shape of the container, gets perfectly into that shape. That's what happens to the energy of a human life. It takes the shape of the container, which is its tribe, you know, which is the parents and teachers and religious beliefs and the mores of the culture and that sort of thing. It takes that shape because it has to, because that's how you survive. You're not in that shape, you die, right? You can't contradict this. And so you cut off all the things that don't work, enhance, or even make up stuff that isn't you, because it does. And now you've created a stable environment in which the nervous system, the energy system can function and survive. Right? And then you make the mistake of thinking, this is who I am. And clearly you're not. You are the infinite potential for everything. But that potential is appearing in this moment as this particular form. And it's not all negative. This particular form is the instrument you're going to play for this lifetime. So that's all there is to it. You, infinite, unconditioned, perfectly free consciousness, has simply identified with what is nothing more than the energy system confining itself to a particular shape that it needs to. But you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you at all. And once you understand that and liberate yourself from, again, it's I'm not my conditioning, you liberate the conditioning simultaneously. Suddenly the world gets bigger. The conditioning, which has basic assumptions about the nature of the world, that's why it conditioned itself. Suddenly its world gets bigger, the conditioning begins to dissolve and reform in a bigger shape. It's like, going beyond your comfort zone. There's a lot of different words, but this is actually what's happening. And your vision gets bigger. Oh, the nervous system simply gets bigger and it keeps going. There's no limit. There's absolutely no limit to it. So does that answer it for you, Anne? Shanti says, I really am 100% on board with everything you've said. Much love and gratitude. Yes, very good. Very, very good. Isabel says, yum. Wonderful. Pearl says, I love you, Shanti. Chinese medicine is very good for the sea. Maybe worth looking into. Totally agreed. As is acupuncture, various kinds of healing modalities, Qigong, even EFT, which is, kind of a westernized reduction of acupuncture and the Tao, but extremely effective. I teach it as part of inner reconciliation. Anyone looking for help, check out my bro on YouTube, Zen Atman. He goes live all the time. Ask him questions about him. Eli Jin sent you for some help. Great. Can you give a link to his channel, Eli? That'd be really helpful. Yes, because there's a lot of stuff out there to help us. And there's huge changes that need to take place. We need to create a place that is conducive to health, not so toxic. But remember, if I can go off on this for just a second, the physically toxic environment that we have created is a reflection of the toxicity of the egoic mind, the toxicity of greed, anger, greed, and the three poisons. I can't remember what they are now. Anger, greed. If somebody remembers, help me. Sometimes the memory fails. But that greed, which is that sense of smallness, the sense I need to get something, I need to hoard, I need to hold on to it, is a poison. And it is creating the toxic, energetic atmosphere, which is manifesting itself as companies like Monsanto and Nestle, which are just evil. They serve no real human purpose. And all the politicians and stuff that go along with it. So we've created a toxic environment, but the toxic physical environment is a manifestation of the polluted mental environment that is just the manipulation and deception and hypocrisy of our time. Purifying yourself, that is, recognizing your innate purity. You can't actually make yourself any more pure because you're 100% perfectly pure. You can, though, dispel all the beliefs about you, that is, the ideas you have about yourself, the image you hold of yourself that isn't pure. It's not who you are. That purification, which is not a purification, which is a recognition of the purity you already are, will cleanse the environment. That's why we have to do this. That's why I do this. This is, to me, is the real answer to the problems of humanity. Our answer is not structural, really. It's not political. It's not economic. It's not a restructuring of wealth. It's none of that. That will all happen. Those will all come about. But our fundamental values, our fundamental recognition of who we really are, is what will lead the charge and expand ourselves into a level of creativity and community that could literally wipe out all the problems humanity is facing in a very, very brief period of time. But we first have to get to the crux. We have to shift the perspective and end up in the world of love and compassion. I believe it's happening. um, Helen Watson says, beautiful GP regarding illness and cancer. Makes complete sense. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Helen. Now, Eli has another interesting question. Can you talk about that there is no cause of anything? First off, I will, but this is important. I'm always very slow to put out the real absolute non-dual truths, because it's so easy for the mind to grab onto them as a concept. Buddha talked about dependent arising. He talked about the 12 links in the chain of causality, but he also went beyond all of those. If we see cause and effect, here's an easy way to approach it. We see cause and effect as kind of this linear chain. This happened, then this happened, then this happened, and so this happened. And so it'd be very natural for our minds to want to control the steps along the process so we'll get this end result. But when you really look closely, you find that causation is not linear, and that this moment that we kind of isolated really randomly and mistakenly, we isolated this little thing, thought of it as an isolated cause that created this cause, that created this effect, which then was the cause of something else. We don't see that this thing isn't isolated. It isn't separate from the rest of the universe in which it exists. And so you have a statement like Nisargadatta made, which everything causes everything. Our minds have to narrow things down to make an isolated cause. You cannot find an isolated cause. You simply can't. Go look. Everything is a compounding of so many variables that it's literally impossible for the mind to conceive of, let alone control. The universe is the way it is. Why am I sitting here at this moment talking to you, wearing this shirt and this microphone in this room? Because the universe is the way it is. I have to reduce the infinitude of the universe to a random, arbitrary flow of events, rule out the vast majority of everything else going on, so I can isolate this guy and say, oh, well, this happened because of this, because of this, because of this. But then you start, wait a minute, why did that happen? Well, because of this. Yeah, but what about this? The more you look at it, you realize that when we talk about cause and effect, we don't know what we're talking about. That it is the mind attempting to reduce the infinite down to something that it can understand and mostly control. That's why you can't control it. So you cannot pinpoint anything and say there's a cause. You cannot point to anything, that's the cause. Because first off, there's an infinite amount of things that make this happen. That for whatever reason, this infinite number of causes, this is the thing that actually happened. But the moment it happens, it ceases being a result. Right? If the cause, boom, the result takes place, at that moment, it becomes the cause of the next thing. So at what point did it make the transition from cause to effect, right? To cause again, right? And you find a circle. You can think of it as being, there's no cause at all. Everything is just happening. Or you can think of it as infinite causation. It ends up being the same. You get this circle. Something happens. But, you know, one of the beauties of that, the yin-yang symbol, one of the beauties of realizing that the cause to effect is a continuum, right? And at what point, and at what point in time, and if you slice time, however thin, you're not going to find a cause. You're not going to find anything at all. This is the nature of emptiness. You could say there's no cause because nothing actually happens, and yet nothing doesn't happen. It is that last statement I make is actually the most pure expression of it. There's both cause and no cause. There's effect and there is no effect. Things exist and they do not exist. This is how Buddha put it. And he put it that way because if you say they exist, you give them an eternality that obviously they don't have. Everything is going through a phase, right? Even a solid object that appears to be solid, but when you look really closely, there's tiny little things buzzing around. And if you close tiny little things buzzing around, there's other tiny things buzzing around making up that. You just get this vast emptiness. That's the only word. Does it exist? Yes, the cup exists. I'm sitting here drinking tea, Earl Grey with a little bit of honey. Huh? Does it exist? Absolutely. No, it does not. Grind it up. Where did the cup go? The cup is a momentary form. So what's the cause? If nothing actually is, it's all emptiness, then there is no cause to anything. There is no effect. But now notice your mind cannot grasp, well, then nothing exists. It goes into nihilism. Nothing exists. And you'll hear a lot of what I call neo-Advaita teachers say, no, there's nothing there. Nobody's there. There's nothing to learn, nothing to do. And I would quote Swansong and his famous koan where he asked that question. He bangs his stick on the ground and he says, stick and sound, same or different? If you tell me they're the same, I will hit you 30 times. If you tell me they're different, I will still hit you 30 times. Now, whack. Stick and sound, same and different. This koan is pointing to what, to that both exists and does not exist. If you say it exists, it becomes solid. It's a thing. It's the same. Boom, 30, hit you 30 times. If you say it doesn't exist, like the neo-Advaitas, there's nothing there, there's no one, there's nothing to do, it's all a big nothing, I will still hit you 30 times because obviously it's there. I'm drinking tea. This is the place of pure non-duality. It is the place beyond the mind. This is what in the Heart Sutra they referred to as prajnaparamita, the ultimate wisdom. Gate gate padagate parasamgate bodhisvaha. Gone, gone, gone beyond, gone totally beyond. It is beyond all up and down. It is beyond existence and non-existence. You cannot say one or the other. It is the absolute perfect middle way. It is the center that is not the center, that is also the circumference. Is this sinking in? I wasn't intending on going quite that deep. So you see, to just say nothing has a cause, look at the way the mind grasps that. Oh, there's no cause to any. The mind wants to do something with that. It's trying to fit it into its dualistic model. You can't. There is no cause of anything, or there's an infinite cause to anything, or there's infinite causes to everything, or there's nothing at all, or there is everything, right? It exists. It does not exist. Yes. And so we are confronted with this ultimate experience of life. And as far as I'm concerned, the best word that expresses it is the word shunyata, emptiness, which is what the whole Heart Sutra is about. This form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. The form is empty. There's no cup. There's no cup, right? Separate from all the things that make up the cup doesn't exist. Destroy this, and there is no cup, right? So the cup is empty of inherent existence. Cups aren't eternal, and yet it exists. It exists in this moment. It persists, kinda. All I can do is invite you to step into this very strange territory of genuine non-dual inquiry. And this is what you find. Now, inner reconciliation, as I made it, is simply a means of preparing yourself to get to here. That's what all yoga, meditation, all of these things were for. They were not an end in and of themselves. They've gotten kind of diluted, really distorted. Yoga has become about physical exercise. That's not what it's for. Meditation has become about stress relief. That's not what it's for. All of these things have just been kind of usurped to serve a material purpose, to serve the material model that is the world. That is not what they're for. Their point is to go beyond matter, go beyond mind. So, with that in mind, ooh, wow, it's been 2 hours already. Goodness gracious, look at, I still got like a million questions here. Oh, my lovely friends, I am not going to be able to get to all of these. I am so sorry. Oh, let me go through this. Let's see. How do I have a chat with God and tell him or her to stop making me broke forever? Discover the true nature of wealth and riches, and you will never know broke again. It's not money, believe me. Let's see. Life is a sketch. This is an interesting one. Hello from Slovenia. What about pornography? Is this an obstacle for an enlightened life? I mean, watching it, yeah. Well, obviously just existing isn't, but watching it. Pornography can only stand because we've got such a distorted view of our bodies and sex. I mean, if we all really were comfortable with our bodies, there wouldn't be pornography. You go down to South America, Brazil, countries that don't, that are it's northern. I don't know why, because it's colder or something, I guess. We got these weird ideas about the body and sexuality and like that. You go to other parts of the world, they don't have that. They don't have that same kind of thing. It's very natural, and as a result, they don't have pornography. They don't have the problem, right? Pornography is an expression of our inability to accept our own nature, not necessarily necessarily the divine nature, our human nature, which are actually one and the same. We can't accept our sexuality. I highly recommend that people learn tantric sex. If you're with a partner, by all means, do it. You should learn it, because it helps us to transcend the really horrible view of sexuality that has been perpetuated in Western culture, and shows it for what it actually is, which is a means of communication and expression, and a very therapeutic way of relieving all sorts of kinds of traumas and the like that are stored in the body. This is extremely true for women, which store a lot of sexual trauma from their childhood in their genitals, specifically in the G spot. And exercise in tantra for relieving that, but it becomes about quality of life and not about the sexuality. And suddenly, sexuality now gets elevated. It gets updated, up leveled to a completely different approach. And the more that happens, the less interest there is in pornography. Pornography is again, it's a total reduction of the energy down to the lowest common denominator. It's not, I won't even say animal, which is natural. It's not, there's nothing natural about it at all. It's repetitive. It's, I mean, it's really quite stupid. But, and I don't want to sound that, because, you know, there might be some people listening who have have an issue with it. Explore, realize that the only reason it's attractive is because you are not allowing yourself to feel your own sexuality, your own sensuality, your own humanness. Feel it. Use the same inner reconciliation exercises to feel the actual vitality and life of the body. And remember that the ban on sexuality was another tool of empire. It's how you control people. You control something you don't have control over. You make somebody feel guilty about something they don't have control over, and you have them in your hands. So to liberate your sexuality and liberate your mind is a revolutionary act. it is an act of great protest. You know, we want to think, wow, just you know, pornography looks like it's an act of protest, but it's not. It's an act of being suckered. The real embodiment of your sexuality is a real revolution. To reclaim that space as yours, and the culture has no right to tell you what to do with it. And that gives you the opportunity to approach it with wisdom. How does one do it? Well, that's the tantric model, is that so it doesn't go nuts. It serves the higher purpose. It serves now the reality of who you are. That will liberate it. So if that answers that, let's see. Let's get watching it. Okay, yeah. So I hope that answers it for you. You are so right about this, GP. Make friends with the death of the body is crucial. Western pharmaceutical approach to treatment is barbaric and is a frantic, fearful approach. Yes, it is. Absolutely. Make you afraid of death and then give you all sorts of drugs that you don't need so that you don't live. Yeah, it is barbaric. Yeah, it is stupid. We have to come to terms with death. We should be learning how to die. Everybody's going to make this transition. So there's no fear of death. Believe me, all illnesses have a whole lot less place in which to sink in, because they don't have the same kind of energetic fear to hold on to. It's very powerful, right? Oftentimes things are healed, but there's no such thing as a healing that's going to make you live forever, right? Right? As this form, you know, you are going to live forever, but not as this form. This form that I'm in right now, right? I've had 10 of them. I'm in number 10. I'm going through my 10th body, right? Complete shift. So it's dying all the time. It's not something that happens at some moment. It's dying all the time. Del Henderson says, "Hey, brother. Oh, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you." Shanti says, "Whoops, gee, reminding me of Jesus, the mob chasing him down, shouting, 'Heal me!'" Feel the love from us all. Thank you, Shanti. I get it, and I don't mind. I really don't mind. Yeah, yeah, you just kind of stopped me in my tracks there. The teacher wants students to be free, wants doesn't want to create followers, wants to create leaders, wants to create other teachers. That's the desire. I want you all to become a teacher. It doesn't have to be on a stage like I am or like somebody else. Just in your own life with everybody around. The effect that you have on others is such that you teach by your being, and that's something you're all capable of doing. You don't have to have great words. You don't have to have great metaphors. You don't have to study a lot. You simply give expression to what you have really come to see. Step one, you really come to see it. You make that the most important thing in the world. And then step two, you'll find you're living it. And in that living, you are teaching. And believe me, mobs will come to you too. Maybe a mob of one, but they will come because everybody wants this freedom. We all inherently know that the way the world is going, the way we're living is not, it's not what we were meant to be. So it has been 2 hours. So I'm going to end it for now. My goodness, I hate doing this, but there's a whole bunch of other questions here, and I just can't get to them all today. Just wanted to let you all know, as always, I am open and hoping some people can can step and make a donation on Patreon. I haven't gotten the one-time donation thing put up there yet, but Patreon, you can $1 a month. It really does. It actually does add up, and it helps. So I invite you to, if you can, of course, if you can't, fine. I'm going to be doing live satsangs in front of an audience. Going to be doing a lot more of them in 2019. So anybody around the world here that that might have enough people that could make me come there live. And if I can't come there because there's either enough people or it's just too distant, too expensive to get there, I am more than willing to do a live satsang with your group, with like your meetup group or something, via Skype, and answer questions that way. So I'm willing to do satsangs like that for different groups. I'm going to be doing it with a meetup group in Australia. She contacted me about it. I thought, what a great idea. Let's do that. And so we'll be doing some more things like that, more retreats and the like. So by all means, keep me posted. Anybody around here who lives in Seattle and can help me find my way around and find some places where I might be able to do satsang and the like and do some more filming. I would really, really appreciate it. So patreon.com/GPWalsh. I'm also going to be doing restarting the Simple Thoughts once a week. There'll be a just a little apocryphal bit of aphorism that I'm going to be mailing out just to kind of start doing that again, which I did for a long time. I'm also going to start a regular brief meditation focused primarily on just peace. Starting in November, probably every Wednesday at noon Eastern, which is 9 o'clock in the morning for me. So, so anyway, those are all the announcements. And next week, there will not be a live satsang. I will try to do a video beforehand. I'm going to be at a conference all weekend, so I won't be able to make it live. But I will have a video for you, and I will be back the weekend after that, I believe. Yeah, I'm actually going to be on the road that weekend too, but I think I'm going to be able to have a period of time where I can get online live and have the satsang. So sorry I couldn't answer all of the questions today, but when you listen to me or any teacher really. Um, the questioning, all the questions that I answer are questions or answers for you too. Even if I don't get to your question, don't just kind of dismiss it and wait for me to get around to it, because we're always talking about the same thing, right? The words are different, the questions are different, the answer is always the same. Right? Who are you? When you find that out, that's the end of all questions. There's no need anymore. Don't worry about it. Don't be concerned. It answers all questions. You find there aren't any. Or you might put it this way, you find that you are the answer to the questions. And the questions are really always the heartfelt attempt to get yourself back to who you really are. And who you really are is pure, unadulterated, untouched, untainted consciousness. The consciousness that was there before any of the conditioning occurred, before any identification arose. And it's still here. It's still in its absolute, innocent, pristine form. Once again, thank you all. Thank you all for joining me. I'll see you next time. Till then, I love you. Namaste.